on the front lines.
Men on the front lines.
We call forth these mighty men of valor.
The Lord put a vision in my heart for a new movement amongst men in the body of Christ.
The Lord says that I'm going to make champions out of those who would gather unto me.
And I believe what men on the front lines will do.
And I see it going into the nations.
He's going to raise the bar among men. It's time for heroes to arise. I'm Robert Hotchkin, and this is Heroes Arise, Men on the Front Lines live social media broadcast where we encourage men in their gifts and callings so that we can arise as the heroes, the warriors, and the champions that God created us to be. You are an agent of impact. You have an important role to play in the kingdom and in the earth. God is a sphere of influence He created you for. And on today's broadcast, you're going to not only be encouraged by what one man is doing on behalf of an issue that's deep, deep, deep on God's heart, but you're going to come to realize that the experiences you have, the talents you have, the connections you have, they can all be used powerfully by God in ways you haven't even imagined yet. But before we get to today's topic and our very special guest, I've got a quick announcement for you. Do me a favor, get your calendars out. Get out your iCals, get out your phone calendar apps, get out your old school calendars, and circle June 7th. Because on June 7th at 6 p.m., we're going live with our next Men on the Front Lines Raise the Bar webinar. And for 1 hour, myself and Darren Stott are going to be speaking into your lives to see you come into all that God created you for. Darren oversees the Seattle Revival Center, and he and his team there, they have been establishing a revival culture in the Northwest that's doing exactly what Men on the Front Lines is dedicated to. They are raising their people up in their gifts and callings and then launching them out into spheres of influence outside of the church, into media, into business, into government, into family spheres, into every single sphere of influence, bringing the reality of the kingdom, the wisdom of the kingdom, the resources of the kingdom into those places so we can not only see revival in the church, but we can start to see reformation in the nations. So that's June 7th, right here live from our studio in Maricopa, Arizona, 6 p.m. Pacific time. If you're watching the stream today on my Facebook page, if that's the stream that you're watching on, the official Robert Hotchkin Facebook page, you can see at the very top of the page, the banner, the blue banner. You click on that and you'll get all the information about how to connect with us for Raise the Bar on June 7th. But now I want to get into this week's topic. We're going to talk about a topic that is big on God's heart. It's big on the church's heart. It's big on the world's heart. And it's probably big on your heart. It's human trafficking. And we've got a special guest with us today who is an incredible man on the front lines. And he's the perfect guest for this show because he is a man on the front lines, plural. Let me read you a little bit from this man's resume and experience of the different front lines he's been on. He has been on the front lines in the military, serving in the Marine Corps, serving as a Navy SEAL, serving as a sniper instructor, and serving as a decorated for heroic service. He's served in law enforcement and security as a federal air marshal, and he's worked in security details for U.S. senators, U.S. ambassadors, and U.S. secretaries. Plus, in addition to all that, he's on the front lines in media, working as a consultant and advisor to multiple Hollywood and TV projects. He's got shows on the History Channel, the Military Channel, and Animal Planet Channel. This is a man with multiple respected and distinguished careers, and yet, as opposed to simply retiring and resting on his laurels or embracing the glitz and glamour of the Hollywood lifestyle, he's decided to use all of his talents, all of his training, and his contacts to create an incredible task force that is taking on human trafficking. Our guest today is Craig Sawyer, who's put together Vets for Child Rescue, and he's been kind enough to share some of his time out of his very busy schedule with us today to tell us about what he, his team, and Vets for Child Rescue are doing to protect and rescue our children. Craig Sawyer, thank you so much for remoting in from your home studio today and being a part of our Heroes Arise broadcast.
It's my pleasure, Robert. Thanks for having me on.
So I shared with our audience a little bit about your amazing background, and as we were saying just before we went live, I know a little bit about you. I actually got exposed to what you guys are doing through my wife. She was watching an Alex Jones broadcast and saw you sharing, and she said, "Honey, you've got to listen to this guy. What he's doing is amazing." We've been involved in anti-human trafficking efforts in Southeast Asia, and it's something that we've been exposed to, and we know the size of it. But we've been so impressed by, as big as this issue is around the planet, it's not too big for God. And one of the reasons I'm so glad that you're willing to be with us today is you're living proof of that. You're living proof that anyone who's willing to be on God's side in an issue can have dramatic impact through their life, through whatever training or equipping they've had. So what I'd like to ask first is, tell us a little bit about how you first got exposed to this issue and how it came upon your heart. As opposed to, as I said, resting on your laurels, all the incredible media projects you have, how did human trafficking become an issue of your heart, and how did you want to get involved in child rescue?
Well, it was genuinely a chain of events, like so many other things in life. You know, my father was a sincere and devout pastor of a church, and he went on missions all across the world helping people. And I could not come home from the Navy SEAL teams and take my father anywhere without people hugging on him. And I wanted to give more of that later on in my life. You know, I'd gone and faced down the bad guys and kept them from coming here and ruining our sanctuary of security and freedom. And then I'd gotten over into South Africa running counter-poacher operations. And in the counter-poaching operations, I built a network to do that. Intelligence officials and experts and all that it took. We built a $200 million capability in that regard. So a lot of my contacts and teammates really wanted to do more. And as I began to learn, just since this election, how pervasive this human trafficking situation is right here in the continental United States, I was motivated to do more. Now, with an education on that, I started learning that not only are there humans being trafficked, young ladies for sex, and that even the children for sex, but children for satanic rituals and even satanic sacrifice. So there are multiple layers to this. There are different flavors, if you will, of this trafficking, and some of them very dark, very horrible, and really unthinkable in a lot of ways for we, the people who haven't been exposed to a lot of this. And I've had a rough life. I've been exposed to a lot. So, but as a federal criminal investigator, which is one of the hats that I've worn professionally, I'm very skeptical until I see evidence. So some close friends of mine at the top of federal law enforcement and even local law enforcement are sharing with me what's going on with these raids and interdictions and investigations, and letting me know just how bad it is and how widespread it is. And I thought, my gosh, why, if I don't do something about this, then I can't look myself in the mirror. I can't look away from it now that I know how bad it is for the kids and how many of them are falling victim to it. So I just feel this burden that I have to do it. So it's really accumulation cause. They just can't just go sit on the beach. I can't just relax and play. I've got to help, man. And I think we all do. And we all can, in different ways. So that's the bright side of this, as dark a story as it is of a percentage of mankind turned to this sort of dark, harmful activity against our most precious and innocent among us, our children. It's bright to see how many people will stand up now that they're learning about it and go, oh, heck no, we will not allow this. We will intervene to whatever degree we can and turn this around for the kids. So that's really inspiring for me to see how many people, because I didn't know how many people would rally behind me and my team. I just decided, for better or worse, I have to do this. I've got to pick up the flag and charge straight up the middle of the field and go, hey, this fight needs to be on. And not knowing where it would lead, and it seems to be the right thing to do, because so many good people are falling in line, and they're like, "So you go, man. We're with you. We'll stand up next to you." So it's a beautiful thing. I appreciate that, and together we'll make a huge impact. Now, with my background and my connections, there are a lot of ways to go against an epidemic like this, a crisis. Some are going and rescuing the children directly. Do an investigation, find a child, rescue them. It may be even multiple kids at a time. Man, I praise that. I welcome that as beautiful work. And for every child, that's life-changing. So God bless them for it. What I realized when I went to face this problem down is that because they are capturing so many children daily, we can't rescue enough to win that fight. So I wanted to bring up, what are the big nuclear weapons that we, so to speak, that, figuratively, that we can go to just really turn this around. And what I learned by blowing the whistle on a federal crook while I was in the Air Marshal Service, who was eventually fired for gross mismanagement and retaliation, is that these high-ranking crooks are fearful of exposure. That's their Achilles heel. That's what they cannot tolerate, is that scrutiny upon their unthinkable and despicable behavior. So I'm like, okay, that's it.
They
want
to stay hidden,
exposure
don't
that
they?
I can bring.
They want to stay hidden, don't they?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
They want to stay hidden, don't they? Darkness wants to stay in the dark. But what is it you said on your website? You've got that one beautiful graphic with the child, and that sunlight is the antidote.
That's the best antiseptic for corruption.
That's it. That's it.
I believe with all my heart and soul that it is. I've seen that it is. And I like to spell it sunlight, S-O-N.
There you go. I like that. I like that. Well,
that's the light right there.
I like what you're saying about, because it is important that everybody serves and how they feel called to serve. And I know when we started out with our anti-human trafficking efforts over in Southeast Asia, we started in Pattaya, Thailand, which is an international destination for sex tourism. And we started by helping get the women out of the sex trade and get them into micro-enterprises so they had different ways to earn a living. But then we got exposed to the pedophile rings. And that was, as you well know, that was just heartbreaking, heart-wrenching and heartbreaking. And we did what we could, which at that point was mostly prayer and seeing some exposure, seeing some busts. But we wanted to go deeper, and we went over into Cambodia then, where the children were being trafficked from. But there are so many children that can be trafficked because it is such a huge business, and there's such a lust for money that people are willing to pay so much money for this, that I like what you're saying, that every single person who goes in to rescue a woman, rescue a child, rescue a man from this, it's wonderful. But if we can go even deeper, I know for us, God said, you've dealt with the fruit, now I want to take you to the root. And we're learning how to go deeper and deeper into the root. And you're saying, even going to where you're exposing is it the pedophile rings or the pedophiles themselves? And our feed broke up just for a little bit. It hitched for a little bit. So if you already addressed this, I apologize. But can you talk a little bit about the team you've put together, because it's kind of mind-blowing, the resources, the training, the equipping that you all have, the team you've put together, and then how you are bringing that sunlight, that S-O-N light, to expose the darkness?
Yes, sir. Well, one quick technical thing. I'm getting audio feed from the crew there, so okay. I don't know if that can be adjusted. Help me hear you a little bit better.
Okay.
What we're doing is we're going to bring, the way that we're going to combat this is to shoot a documentary series.
Okay.
There are those whom you know who are doing great work in Southeast Asia. There are several other places where this is prevalent, and I'm focused initially here in the continental United States.
That's
so what
fantastic.
I want to do is shoot a documentary series because it's been so heavily suppressed. They've killed off, bought off, or otherwise intimidated and silenced who knows how many other people, but they've kept this very, very quiet. And it's just now in the last 4 weeks, started cracking open and leaking out. The mainstream media has been complicit and deliberately suppressing this by all indications. But they can't keep the lid on this thing anymore. That sunlight's leaking out, and people are coming out, the witnesses and the victims, and the law enforcement and so many other people are sharing now. So this is starting to come out, even as hard as it is to believe how much of it is going on. That truth has a way of making itself known. So it's starting to leak out. Mainstream media is not covering it quite yet, but what we want to do is just rip the lid off of this whole thing and turn on all the lights and go, hey, look at this. This is unacceptable. So that's our weapon. Really, it's this documentary series, and it's got to be a good quality series. It's got to be shot well. We've got high ranking officials. We've got perpetrators in some cases. We've got well-respected victims and witnesses where we can go along with investigations and raids and so forth and just film and show the entire story of this. And it takes an eclectic crew to do that. And so we've got, counter-terrorist operators. We've got film and television crews that are used to doing, run and gun, guerrilla style production shooting. So that kind of thing. So all together, we can really make a big difference, along with our intelligence crew and the law enforcement contacts and all of this. So it's taking shape right now. We're in the early days, but we already see what we want to do and where it's going. So it's encouraging to know what we can do and to have verification already of what those who are complicit and involved in child rape and trafficking are doing. Their response to the launch of Veterans for Child Rescue has been to panic and to plan their attacks to silence us. And we already know what those attacks are because we've got a great network monitoring everything out there. And so we know what they're thinking, what they're planning. And so it'll be interesting to see them fall on their own sword, because when the attacks come, we already know what those attacks are going to be. So we're prepared for that.
I can't even imagine how panicked they must be when you think about just the time I spent last night doing some research on you guys, on Vets for Child Rescue, and the incredible experience, talent, and equipping that you bring to this. I mean, just for our viewers who haven't had a chance to go to your website yet, and I know we're going to be putting that up throughout the broadcast today, so they know they can go to Vets4, and that's the number 4, Vets4ChildRescue.org, and you're going to learn all about what Craig Sawyer and his amazing team are doing. But for our listeners, our viewers out there, I want you to know that some of the resources, some of the training that they're bringing to bear against this issue are people that have served with the NSA, with military intelligence, with the CIA, with the U.S. State Department, the Department of Justice. And Craig, if I read this correctly, special forces, former special forces, not only from the USA, multiple branches of special forces from our military, but also from Britain's and Germany. Is that correct?
That's correct. Because while there is a lot of this going on, this is not just an American problem. This is very much a global problem, as most people understand. And there are good people everywhere. And like I said, my international counter-poaching team are an eclectic group by choice. I've learned to value diversity in a team, because what answer I may not have, my teammate, if he hasn't been raised exactly like I have and have my exact experiences, he may have a different solution. So I love the idea.
That's great.
And the practice of having an eclectic team who all have different solutions to offer on the board, and we can weed through those and find the most effective one for each situation. So it's a beautiful aspect of what we do.
I think it's wonderful. And I also think how you're tackling it through media is brilliant, because we have been the boots on the ground in Southeast Asia. And we know many ministries and many good works here in the USA that are boots on the ground. But, I often think of it, and you would have much better revelation on this than I would, because you've served in the military. But we not only need the boots on the grounds, we need the Air Force. We need the carpet bombing of opening eyes. And the media will do that. And I think just in my lifetime, I'm 52 years old, and in my lifetime, the way the messages of the media have changed to where, we're in the days now where, just like it says in the Bible, they're calling evil good and good evil. And so much of that brainwashing, so much of that brain conditioning is happening through media, that for you guys to not only bring all your skills, all your experience, all your talents to bear, but having the ultimate goal to create this docu-series to get the word out, to broadcast it out. I think that's so necessary, because we even as a ministry, when I connected with you through email, I know what you're doing is important. I know how busy you are. I wanted to honor that by telling you the truth and saying, hey, we're still pretty new. Heroes Arise is a new online show. I didn't want to pretend that we were bigger than we were. But at the same time, I think it's important that whatever any of us can do to co-labor with God through the media in any way, whether it's on like what you're doing through cable networks, or what you're going to do through this docuseries, or what we're doing through God TV with our TV show, or even with the web and social media with live streams like this. So much of the lies of the enemy and the conditioning of that spirit of humanism is going out through the media, we must do what we can to fill the airwaves, fill the networks, fill the cable channels, fill the internet with truth. So I really want to commend you that what you guys are doing is building towards a documentary series. Do you at this point have any idea of when that will be ready to air?
We don't yet.
Okay.
We're still formulating not only the budget but the timeline of how the production will be shot, because some of it, and I don't want to share too much yet to the public, but some of it will be dependent upon the cases that we'll be following, and some of these cases take some time. So I don't want to start putting out dates and have people disappointed. We're just going to. We have to let the public know that we're doing this to fund it, because we're going independent to get around the gatekeepers who would stop us given a chance.
Good for you.
So we've let that out, and we're getting it funded privately, independently. But we've got to wait and see on which cases we can follow to their conclusion and include those, and which ones we may have to set aside. But we will have a very, very telling and demonstrative product for the people to sit back and watch, and I think I've got a pretty good eye for that, because like I said, I'm skeptical too, and even when my friends are telling me what's going on, as far as the dark side of it, the satanic and the ritualistic torturing to death of these children, and some of these sick people are really they think they get power out of it. The kids have to be screaming and tormented in their death before they think that the blood is energized, and they get health benefits and satanic power from it. It's just really, really strange and bizarre. So I'm having a hard time believing it myself, but I'm talking to people that are boots on the ground dealing with it directly, saying, so this is exactly what's going on. I'm like, my gosh, we've got to really be careful to be inclusive in this, so that the people sitting back at home can see for themselves how it really is and go, oh my gosh, But ultimately, the objective is not just to entertain people. Well, hey, wasn't now you know something you didn't know. Well, where's the benefit? The benefit is people creating a non-permissive environment for this, for these human traffickers that are doing this right under our noses in so many cases, to be dogged out, to be turned upon, to be betrayed by their own friends and family and colleagues, to say no. I know somebody that's doing that, and calling the police, calling the FBI, calling us, and dogging them out and having them busted, arrested, investigated, and otherwise interdicted, so that they cannot do this anywhere they go. And some of it's on the internet as well. We're going to have to address that. Let's say a coward here wants to do harm to a child, and he doesn't want to do it personally. He can swipe his credit card or use Bitcoin and have someone in another country harm the child in whatever way that he dictates, and he's talking to him live, and they're harming an innocent little child. It just breaks your heart.
It is heartbreaking. And I think what you're doing and the insight you have is so important, because we do have to find a way to bring it home to everybody. I mean, I can remember being in Bangkok and getting into a taxi just to go to a meeting. And as soon as I got in the taxi driver turns around and offered me a menu, a laminated menu of women, children on one side, and then weapons on the other side. And didn't know I was a minister, didn't know I was a Christian, didn't know I was there actually for anti-human trafficking efforts. And I asked him a question, and I said, what are you doing? And he said, oh, it's okay. They need to make money. We need to make money. It's all okay. And so all of a sudden, God just gave me a strategy. And I asked him, and I said, so you think this is absolutely okay? He said, yes. I said, well, do you have a daughter? Do you have a wife? He said, yes, of course. I make money for my family, my wife and my daughter. I said, well, I don't want anything on the menu. How much for your wife? How much for your daughter? And he got so outraged, he almost hit me. And he made me get out of the cab. But as I got out of the cab, I said, I want you to realize every single picture on this menu that you just showed me is somebody's daughter and could be somebody's wife. And that's who you're trafficking, and it's not okay. And I think what you're doing to help open eyes to that is so important, even helping people understand this is going on right here, not just in North America, not just in the United States, not just in whatever our state is, but in our cities. in our schools, in our backyards. We don't know what's going on. And I know one of the things that has been shocking and eye-opening to me is I have a bit of an education of what's going on with all this over in Southeast Asia and even in Eastern Europe where I serve some. But to hear what's going on right here in the USA was shocking to me. So I think your strategy of exposing it, bringing it into the light, I think filling the media with it, and I also think your timing is brilliant because even in the natural, you look at all the popularity of true crime web series, true crime podcasts, true crime cable series. What you're going to be doing is bringing to light one of the truest crimes going on right now that will be heartbreaking, but with the idea that something can be done about it. So here's my next question for you. With everything that you're finding out, because I remember what my education in Southeast Asia was like. They'd give me briefings and I'd have to stop and say, give me just a minute. And I'd go outside and bow my head and pray. And sometimes tears would fill my eyes because I just couldn't believe how dark it was at times. But so how are you staying focused? How are you staying positive? With all the darkness that you're being exposed to, how are you staying focused on good so that you can be an agent of impact for what God wants to do as opposed to being overwhelmed by the darkness?
Well, it's a heavy topic, and it's painful to learn about and kind of deal with. I don't want anything to do with it. I would rather be anywhere else. But I feel a responsibility to do it. And I appreciate your credit for the timing. That's not my timing, brother.
Right, that's right. Yeah.
I think it's just a matter of feeling that burden and having things line up, in rapid succession so that it wasn't subtle anymore. And I just had to act.
Good for you. Good for you.
This is something we've just got to do. It's now, I mentioned before, the people that are rallying behind us on the side of good. That's encouraging. That's an upsiding thing. Knowing that I'm doing something that matters and for the kids, that's an uplifting thing. And I won't stop. Just if nothing but that was in the back of my head, I could rage through this no matter how horrible it ever gets. But there's also the upside when we recover people. There are equine therapy centers and organizations that really perform almost miracle situations with the horses. When people are traumatized, especially young people working with the horses, it's just a fantastic relationship and how these animals interact, and especially with the properly trained therapists. So it's a fantastic thing. There are more upsides than downsides, even as dark and despicable and disappointing as this is. People ask me if I'm scared or if I'm more disgusted, and I think I'm primarily disgusted, but really more disappointed in looking at what percentage of mankind resort to this kind of activity when they're afforded any means that, okay, here I am, I'm wealthy beyond all normal imagination. What am I going to do with my time? Am I going to, become Batman and go fight crime and save people, or am I going to harm children?
Yeah.
And a percentage of mankind resorts to harming children, and come to find out. It's just really disappointing to me. I don't want to fall apart over it, but it's just that I'm overwhelmed with disappointment at that. And I look at it and I think, okay, look, how do you become a billionaire and not know any better than to look for power and meaning in darkness and harm to the innocent? That's your brilliant idea of how to be meaningful, how to be somebody, and how to fill that hole in your heart. Torturing children, you think that's going to do that? Selling your soul to Satan, you think everything's...
Oh, hey, Jonathan, I think he froze up on us. Okay. Oh, good, you're back. All right, Craig, sorry, you froze up on us, but I loved what you were saying. And, I just want to encourage you that even as you were sharing what was coming to my mind for you and also for our viewers, and again, For all our viewers, vetsforchildrescue.org. You can be a part of this. Go to that website. Look into the amazing team Craig Sawyer's put together, the incredible heart they have. These guys are champions. These guys are like King David's and his mighty men and women. And they are taking on a giant in the land. Is it a big giant? Absolutely. But just like when David was still young, he knew that if his God was with him, that there was no giant. I loved how David went into the battle, opening his mouth, declaring the truth, and he said, hey, what you meant to cut my head off with, my God's going to kill you, and I'm going to cut your head off with this. And I just want to applaud Craig Sawyer and his team for being willing to be mighty men in the earth, to be willing to be heroes arising. Now, they have the calling, they have the passion, they have the vision for this. You may be feeling a call to something else, but you can still be a part of this. Go to vetsforchildrescue.org. Donate, support this project, pray for them. And Craig, one of the things I wanted to ask as well is, what are the greatest challenges that you're facing, number one, and how can we help? Now, of course, we're going to donate. We're going to sow. I've personally given into your fundraising, and I'm going to continue to give into it. I love what you guys are doing. I'm going to ask all of everyone watching, if your heart's being stirred at all, this is a big issue. It's a dark issue. It's a difficult issue. But don't look away. Be one of God's mighty men. Be one who's willing to co-labor with God in this through the team that Craig Sawyer has put together. Go, donate, and also, of course, be praying for Craig Sawyer, be praying for the team, be praying for this project. But Craig, what are some of the greatest challenges that you're facing, and how can we help you?
I think some of the biggest challenges are surrounded around how pervasive this is and how many officials, government, politicians, judges, chiefs of police have been corrupted and are part of this. Now, thank God, the overwhelming majority are still good, patriotic Americans with good hearts. But there are a percentage that are in on this, and they're complicit, and they defend those. I talked to a mayor a week ago who was explaining to me that a judge in her area sentenced a witness to prison for life without due process. And that witness would still be in a cell in that jail to this day if he had not been fired for corruption. So it's those types that I think are the biggest corruption. But I mean, if God be for you, who can be against you? I mean, that's right. This thing's cracking wide open already. So we're charging into this fight. There is zero hesitation. The only reason this has taken time is a few legalities and the planning for the production and the travel and all this kinds of thing. So we're charging straight into this every day. We're having meetings and planning and making connections, and there are billionaires and heads of media companies and so forth rallying behind us, generals and admirals and heads of law enforcement that they're like, absolutely, man, this needs to happen. So go, and how can we help? So I thank God for everybody that rallying for the side of good, and some people drag into their own baggage. I like to say that we're each a walking sum total of our life's experiences, as humans, and people want to drag their baggage. Oh, this is about this other thing too, or oh, it's got to be about that. No, it doesn't have to be about any of these other things. It's really about whether or not you believe that children deserve to be harmed, innocent children. If you're a human being, if your mind is not sick and you have any sort of compassion, you can realize a small child has no business being tortured to death. That's a pretty simple one. Yeah, so that's pretty simple. If you don't like that, then you're on our side. And that's a pretty easy thing to articulate. So we appreciate people with us.
I like that. And it really does get simple. And I know that everyone watching today is on your side. And everyone watching today, I want to encourage you, do what you can to help Vets for Child Rescue. Do what you can to help Craig Sawyer and his team. Go to that website, sow today, give today. Is it a big issue in the earth? Absolutely, but it's not bigger than God. You can be an agent of impact today by sowing into this project, praying for this project, praying for Craig Sawyer, praying for his team, sowing into vetsforchildrescue.org. Elijah One man with God tore down the entire darkness and occultic power structure that had turned Israel away from God. Craig was sharing the different levels of government that are involved in these things and trying to hide this and trying to keep this covered up. But do you realize that today, when you're willing to be an agent of impact, when you're willing to partner with the good God is doing through this effort and other efforts like it, other efforts on behalf of anti-human trafficking, you can be like Elijah on Mount Carmel. One with God is enough to tear down all the darkness in the land. And here we've got a whole team willing to go up against this thing. So go to vetsforchildrescue.org. So keep these men, keep this team, keep this project in your prayers. And Craig, before we wrap up, I have one more favor to ask you, one more question. I'm so inspired by what you all are doing, especially when I look at how, as we talked about at the very top of the broadcast, you're taking the gifts, the talents, the training, the equipping, the contacts that you've established throughout your life and bringing it to bear against something that is so on God's heart. Do you have a word of encouragement for the men watching today, for the people watching today, about how they can do the same thing with their lives? Because every single person has some training, some education, some contact, some equipping. How can we start to step out? For someone who maybe yet doesn't quite have that vision, how can you give them, you're a team leader, you're a rallier. Can you rally the people watching today and encourage them on how they can step out in what they've been given and have great impact, just like you and your team are having great impact?
Absolutely. Well, I believe, Hunter, with all my heart, if God be for you, who can be against you? If the creator of the universe is tired of this happening to children, then there's a reason that this is leaking out now after generations. There's a reason that this is leaking out to the public, and we're just starting to see that. I believe that the tide is turning, that this battle is just beginning to really be fought and countered. This is the beginning of the turnaround. So I say, rise up, everybody, unite, shout out the truth, be bold for God, tell it the way you see it, research this, support those who are fighting and putting ourselves in harm's way to do it, and let's all make an impact together. You know, I mean, I don't want to look at myself in a mirror later with disappointment that I didn't do what I could. And I think we can all do different things, even if it's pitch in here or even if it's share with somebody and say, hey, have a look at this. You let our friends in context of power and influence know about what's going on, because we need people to know that we're here and to fund our operations and stand by us and feed us information. So I think it really is a really widespread net and team that we can all have a part in. So everybody can kind of pick up that flag and run with us on this. This truly has got to be a united effort. We're fighting for the soul of our nation right now. That what's done to our children is done to us.
Amen. Right on.
Let's turn this thing around.
Right on. All right, so you heard what Craig Sawyer said. You can be a part of this. Go to vetsforchildrescue.org. That's vets, the number 4, childrescue.org. Sow into this project. Pray for this man and this team. Be a part of what God is doing to tear down this giant in the land. You can be an agent of impact today by partnering with them, by sowing into them, by praying for them. And shout it to the world. When you go to the site, copy the browser link, post it on your Facebook page, your social media. Shout to your whole world, however wide that sphere of influence is, however wide your net is cast. Shout this out and let everybody you know about what's going on, because not only can you have great impact through this, but you can be an inspiration to others. This can inspire others that we can see truly nothing is impossible for God. Craig Sawyer, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us here today. You are the first remote guest we've ever had, and it was just amazing. I can't thank you enough. Thank you for your service to our country throughout your life. Thank you for your service to the world and to our nation through what you're doing. Thank you to you and your team for the great work that you're doing. You truly are a hero, and you are helping other heroes arise. God bless you, and thank you so much. And to all of you who've been watching, I know we went a little longer than we usually do, but I felt that Craig Sawyer's message was so important, and I wanted to give him as much time as necessary to share what they're doing. Don't forget, June 7th, Raise the Bar, 6 p.m. You can go to the top of my Facebook page and you'll see the banner. Click on that and you'll know how to register. Be a part of that. But in the meantime, remember, you too are a hero rising. God has great things for you. You're an important part of his plan for this hour. So go out there and be an agent of impact for the kingdom. God bless you.